It's been another extraordinary 7 days in Silicon Valley. This week, Uber, Snapchat, and Pinterest were in the headlines on the back of yet more fundraising that valued the tech companies in the billions. The news coincided with President Barack Obama's attack on Europe, when he said that regulators' attempts to rein in the power of US tech companies had more to do with the continent's own commercial interests than anything else. Here to discuss these events is Murad Ahmed, European technology correspondent. Murad, so let's start with the valuations. Some of the numbers that have coming out of the west coast of the US have been pretty amazing, even by their standards. What's happened this week, and what is the significance of it?
So, like you say, big money sloshing around Silicon Valley technology companies again. Uber raised another billion. Their bank balance is huge, and they've raised billions in the past. Pinterest has raised more money, according to reports which value them at 11 billion. And then you've got Snapchat, the disappearing messaging app. They're raising money that's valuing them at 16 billion. And I think it tells you a few things. One of them is that there is a lot more money out there for late-stage technology companies at the moment. So far this year, late-stage technology companies have raised 16 billion, and that's double the amount over the same period last year.
Now, obviously, we have companies like Alibaba that have gone to list and gone public. But in this case, you have a situation where it seems that Uber, so much demand from investors to kind of be a part of it, are going in. Why are companies in the Valley choosing to stay private? And why are they able to do it rather than a more traditional route, which is to go public?
Sure. First of all, it's partly because they can. I mean, these numbers is because are being generated because there are venture capitalists, mutual funds, other groups are willing to give late-stage technology companies a lot of money to keep going. It keeps them away from the scrutiny of the markets. No quarterly presentation of your results and the kind of short-term hit to your share price that goes up and down. And partly it's all to do with the mindset of Silicon Valley. If you talk to these companies, they're always talking about the long-term thinking. And there's a kind of feeling that Wall Street is too short-term in its incentives and what it wants. And by staying private for longer, it can think about how to build its business into the long term.
And presumably, a lot of these companies, many of them are not profitable yet. They're pretty, relatively young in the grand scheme of things in the corporate world. And so this also allows them to focus on investing money in directly what they want before they're actually hitting the profit targets that they need in order to necessarily satisfy retail investors or broader investors when it comes to stock markets and so on and so forth. Is that right?
Absolutely, and it's not even profit. So a lot of these are very early stage in thinking about how to make money at all. Pinterest and Snapchat, they're very early on in generating any kind of revenues. Part of this is driven by, particularly on consumer technology brands, what they want to go after is the audience. They want user numbers as much as possible, and then they think about how to generate money as a result. And that's been a good strategy in the past. What's unusual and new about the kind of modern fundraising is quite how much money is being raised by companies who don't really have a business model yet.
Now, in addition to the fundraising and some of the numbers, we also had some pretty forthright comments from President Barack Obama to Recode. He essentially accused European regulators not of thinking about the needs of consumers, but in fact protecting their own commercial interests. He used words like, we own the internet, essentially. What was the reason behind his attack, and what does it say about this conflict between European technology companies and US ones?
Well, if you were cynical about it, then you could read President Obama's remarks as an attempt to curry favor with Silicon Valley once again. There's been a fallout between Washington and the Valley after the Snowden revelations about widespread internet snooping. But actually, I think if you took away some of the cynicism, it tells you a lot of how American tech firms are seeing the regulatory squeeze that's happening in Europe. They see companies like Google being attacked on various sides, from antitrust to privacy, and they see these as attempts to reigning their power, and they don't necessarily think they're legitimate in a way that in Europe, the attitude is, if you're going to come and operate in our shores, then you're going to have to operate by our rules. And that conflict between companies and regulators, particularly in Brussels and Germany, and the Valley, is threatening to spill into a diplomatic row that takes in the US and Europe.
Murad Ahmed, thanks for joining us.